So, the final episodes of Andor Season 2 have just released, and I couldn't be happier with how the show ended. The fact that this is the last season of Andor that we are getting leaves a bittersweet taste in my mouth. On one hand, I feel a bit sad that the show only lasted 2 seasons, but on the other hand, I'm extremely happy that the show is so perfect through and through, and looking back at it, I think 2 seasons was the perfect amount of Andor we needed. It has been so great to see the Star Wars community grow united in praise for this show, and honestly, I don't remember the last time this fandom has been this united. It almost seems like Lucasfilm knew what the fans wanted more than we knew what we wanted. Let me back that up by saying this. Did anybody ever ask for a show about a character who dies in a standalone movie? The simple answer to this is no. If the fans were given the opportunity to vote on a new show, the list would predominantly contain characters who are well known and established in the saga. I'll admit that I probably would have voted for a show about Palpatine before the events of The Phantom Menace, or a show about the Old Republic, but back to my main point, Andor is a show that nobody asked for, yet it has turned out to be, at least in my opinion, the best production Star Wars has ever made. I want to talk about these final 3 episodes because they are phenomenal, man. So let's start with episode 10. Luthen and Lonnie Jung meet on Coruscant, and Lonnie has major news. He tells him about the Death Star and some important locations regarding it, being Jedha, Scarif, and Eadu. He mentions the names Galen, Erso, and Krennic to him as well. He got all this information by managing to get access to Dedra Meero's private files. Lonnie wants Luthen to help him and his family escape in exchange for this information, and Luthen tells him he'll take him and his family to Yavin, where they'll be safe. That was all a big fat lie though, as the camera pans back to Lonnie, dead on the bench with a fatal blaster wound. This scene confused me so much initially. I couldn't believe my eyes that Lonnie just dies like this, and I refused to believe that Luthen was the one to do it. I immediately thought the ISB killed him, but that wouldn't make any sense, as if they were both spotted together, they would have both been captured, so it only makes sense that Luthen killed him. But why? Well, Lonnie was in a pretty high position within the Empire, being an ISB supervisor, and getting him off the planet would not have been a walk in the park. Luthen, having sacrificed the lives he has to build the rebellion, now sees Lonnie as another risk. His main desire is to leave the ISB and flee Coruscant with his family, and Luthen had promised that to him this entire time, as long as he gets him the intel he needs. By this point, the reason Luthen probably saw Lonnie as a threat was because he couldn't guarantee he and his family's safety, and feared that Lonnie would instead turn to the Empire for protection and sell him out. Also, Luthen told him about Yavin, and he could not afford to have the Empire find out about Yavin. The most messed up part of Lonnie's story arc is that he was basically Luthen's slave. He dedicated so much of his life to getting Luthen intel just for him to get betrayed at the last moment. Also, Luthen never did well in his deal to at least keep Lonnie's family safe, so I'm willing to bet the Empire will punish them for treason by relation, and they will also be sacrificed. At Luthen's antique store, Dedra finds him and reveals to him the Starpath unit Cassian originally tried to offer him for money on Ferrix. This Starpath unit was the very first thing that drew her onto his case, and it's pretty symbolic that it marked the beginning and now the end of both seasons of Andor. This was a big gotcha moment for Dedra, but Luthen knew they were coming and had already destroyed most of the evidence. He also knows that he can't be interrogated by the ISB because that would jeopardize the entire Rebel Alliance. So he stabs himself with his knife, almost unaliving himself, but the Imperial Medical Squad is able to keep him alive using their life support machine. The Imperial sees the entire store, and even the beautiful Fondor Hallcraft is left there for inspection. Kleya flees to the apartment that Cassian and Bix were staying at, and it is absolutely wrecked. She has a flashback to when Luthen first found her, revealing that Luthen once was an Imperial sergeant. In the background, many screams can be heard, as they are probably massacring a ton of innocent civilians. Kleya was hiding in a vent on his ship, and I can only guess that the next thing he did was find a way off the planet with her. Kleya finds her bag stored in the ceiling and takes out what we soon find out to be a lock-picking device, and the other tool she used in the previous episode to remove the listening device at Davos Skolden's party. Luthen is being kept on life support at the hospital, and Dedra is there demanding that the doctor get him talking as soon as possible. Supervisor Hirt, who used to be her assistant, arrests her for overstepping her boundaries, following an order from Partagaz. Dedra had previously been able to justify these types of actions, like when she was able to take over the Ferrix sector from Blevin and started the search for access. This time, however, her intuition has gotten the better of her, as her actions have been too rash, and the guy they have dedicated so many resources to finding over these past years is now in a coma. Of course, this is not the only reason she is being arrested. As we find out in the next episode, Krennic knows that vital information about the Death Star got leaked from her files, and he labels her as a traitor for scavenging for information about Luthen and confronting him on her own. Clea sneaks her way into the hospital and uses the lock-picking device to open one of the nurses' lockers. She finds a nurse's work clothes and she puts them on to blend in. She makes her way to Luthen's room as we see more flashback scenes. There are 3 different scenes shown here in the sequence of flashbacks, and each one looks like it takes place at a later point in time than the last. The first flashback shows the start of their antique business, as she shows her usefulness in being able to negotiate prices. The second scene shows some more Imperial brutality as she watches a squad of stormtroopers execute these prisoners in public. There is a memorable line that Luthen tells Clea after she witnesses these people die.
We fight to win. That means we lose. And lose and lose and lose. Until we're ready.
This shows more of Luthen's ideology and how he views rebellion. Growth and loss work in tandem. When a person happens to rise up against a powerful, tyrannical government, losses are bound to happen. These losses will hurt, but they will be pivotal in the growth of the rebellion as more people will be attracted to the cause after they too start to witness the brutality. Just as life is, there are often times when we lose, and the best we can do is grow with the times. Everyone has to fall down to learn how to get back up, and that is what Luthen lives by. The next flashback scene is on Naboo, which I believe is the first time we've seen it in live action since Revenge of the Sith. They planted bombs on the Imperial transports on the bridge across the lake from them, and Luthen gives her the detonator for those bombs, and tells her to make a choice, being to explode the transports or not. And this is a pretty brutal choice to give a child, to make the decision to blow up these transports and, likely innocent people in the mix of those and stormtroopers around the area, right? And you're telling a child to make this decision, and I just think that's careless from Luthen, but maybe this reflects his view on rebellion, and this is just another thing, like, sacrifices have to be made, including losing a child's innocence and respect that they have to kill people at such a young age. And, this is what rebellion is. This is real stuff. She questions him as to why he is testing her, and Luthen answers that the rebellion is real now. And as I was saying, yeah, this is just a point where Luthen's like, yeah, you have to make a choice. Are you going to kill these people, or are you going to stay back and just watch? And basically, he doesn't let her actually detonate the explosive because, yeah, that would be crazy. And, he does it himself, which good on him, I guess. In the present, Clea detonates bombs she has planted all along the Imperial's landing platforms, obviously taking her lesson from this flashback on Naboo and using it in real time. And she uses this as a distraction to get to Luthen's room, and she cuts the life support off, killing him before the Imperials can interrogate and torture him. This episode had such sudden deaths for both Lonnie and Luthen, but I actually like that a lot. Not every death in Star Wars needs to be so dramatic and grand, and I think this fits perfectly for this show. I expected Luthen to die, so I was prepared for that, but for Lonnie, his death caught me so off guard. Honestly, his death is probably the most tragic for me for this season, and his death wasn't even shown, only his dead body afterwards. Lonnie was one of the most vital pieces of the rebellion, and the only thing he got in return was betrayal. No recognition, no freedom, and no safety for his family. Like, that is so crazy. What a disservice to him. And when I say this, I'm not bashing the show, just to make that clear. I actually think that his death was perfect, and that's what had to happen. It just sucks, man, because I really liked Lonnie, and I really think he deserved recognition for all he did, but I guess that's what a rebellion is. That's what realism is, and not all people get the recognition they deserve. Life isn't perfect. You don't get everything you want, and that's kind of like an example that we get with Lonnie. And Lonnie is just done dirty, bro, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. In episode 11, Heert begins his search for Clea as he looks through the security footage and identifies her walking through the hospital. Clea uses a communication device to try to send a message for help. Wilman's messaging device picks this distress call up as Wilman brings it to Cassian, who is playing a tabletop game with K2SO and Melshi. K2SO says that they have played 863 games, which is quite a lot of times to play a game in just a year. But hey, I'm not judging. I'm just as guilty of having an unholy amount of hours in a particular game as well, so I understand the grind. The device signals off again, and Cassian realizes it is in fact a legit distress signal from who he thinks at the time is Luthen. He immediately heads for the U-Wing with K2SO and Melshi as he orders Wilman to stay on Yavin to try to get them on the test roster so they don't get shot down for trying to leave. I think it's funny that K2SO has kept track of how many times Cassian has disobeyed orders.
I've been counting the orders we've disobeyed so far. Would you like to know how many?
No.
17.
Hey.
80.
Dedra is in a cell now as Hirt asks her for advice on how to find Clea. This is kind of crazy as he literally just arrested her, but now is basically admitting that she was better at his job than he is. She tells him how to find her, but adds that he is probably too late. Wilman tells Draven the whole situation, and he is furious that they are still disobeying orders for Luthen. Wilman proceeds to spit facts here.
You can run him down all you want. But the truth is none of this would be here without Luthen.
This is completely true, as Luthen built up all of Yavin, and yet everyone hates him there. This is what Luthen means when he said that he fights for a sunrise that he'll never see. The rebellion was always meant to move on and be something better, and that is exactly what is happening and why having Mon Mothma become the rebel leader was so important. Cassian, K2SO, and Melshi arrive over Coruscant as they descend towards the planet. Something about a rebel ship flying over Coruscant is just so cool to me, and I think it's because it partly reminds me of when the rebels eventually invade Coruscant. It is one of my favorite planets in Star Wars, and I always enjoy seeing it whenever it makes an appearance. They find a landing platform near the apartment, and Cassian and Melshi leave K2SO to manage comms on the U-Wing as they go inside and retrieve Clea. This doesn't work out as they expect though, as a squad of ISB tactical enforcers, accompanied by Hirt, arrive and jam all comm frequencies. Cassian and Melshi find Clea in the apartment, and she tells them everything that has happened, including everything Lonnie told Luthen about the Death Star. Clea isn't very enthused with the idea of fleeing to Yavin, as she knows that everyone there hates Luthen. Cassian makes it clear that they aren't going to leave her there, as the ISB traces the apartment from which the signal is coming from, which is their apartment. And while this is happening, K2SO notices that the comms have been jammed and sees the tactical team going after them, so he decides to leave the U-Wing, and let's just say he stands on business. He easily takes care of the trooper guarding outside as he makes his way to the shuttle, killing their pilot who was managing the comms. This basically ends up leaving the entire tactical team in the dark, and yeah, they are cooked. Because as soon as K2SO finds their sorry asses, I'm afraid they're never going to see the light of day ever again. Episode 11 leaves off on a cliffhanger for episode 12, since after all, that is the finale and where all the action will happen. Anyways, let's get into that last episode of Andor. Cassian and Melshi convince Clea to leave with them to Yavin to be able to see all that Luthen has built, and the tactical team arrives on their floor, and Hirt is ordered to stay back as they approach the door. It's kind of funny that they have no idea the ISB is there, and Melshi walks out into the hallway oblivious that the tactical team is right there about to arrest them all.
You can stop right there! Go, go, go! Slowly raise your hands above your head!
K2SO approaches the elevator as he easily takes care of the two guards. The tactical team throws a stun grenade into the entrance and it knocks out Clea and gets Cassian pretty good. Melshi fends him off while Cassian tries to regain his bearings. K2SO comes to save the day as he walks out of the elevator with the strap. We get a new addition to the growing list of Star Wars hallway scenes as K2SO wreaks havoc on these poor ISB enforcers. He snaps Hirt's neck as he uses his body as a meat shield. What makes this even more messed up is that K2SO is impenetrable to blaster fire, so there's no point in using Hirt as a meat shield, but this is just pure enjoyment that K2SO is having obliterating this Imperial squad. The best part is when K2SO finds them in the apartment.
Cassian, I've cleared a path.
I like how K2SO acts so nonchalant after absolutely murdering the entire ISB team that arrived here without struggle. Cassian definitely made a good choice on Gorman when he decided to bring that KX droid back to be reprogrammed, because they would have been in an Imperial prison or dead if he didn't. They make their way back to the ship as they have to carry Clea, who is still unconscious from that stun grenade, onto the U-Wing. On Yavin, Saw Gerrera is speaking with Mon Mothma through a hologram. Mon Mothma has her Rogue One in original trilogy look, and I'm glad they did that because it fits way better with the continuity. I was worried for a second that they were going to keep her usual look, which I like, but yeah, I'm really glad they made this move here. It just ties everything together so much better. This argument that she is having with Saw showcases the ongoing divide that the Rebel Alliance has had with Saw Gerrera's group. This disagreement between the two factions was shown a lot in the animated show Rebels, and I'm glad they tied things together in that respect. They tie so much together in this episode in general, which is why I think this finale is so dang good. In her argument with Saw, Mon expresses her concerns about their continuation of fighting the Empire in Jedha while there is a Star Destroyer hovering over the city, and that the Empire will hunt them down if they continue. Draven is informed that an unauthorized U-Wing is trying to land, and Bail questions him on whether it's Andor. Bail especially isn't pleased with Cassian disobeying orders, and Draven checks in with Admiral Raddus, who is the captain of the MC-75 that attacked Scarif in Rogue One. He is dispatching the X-Wings to intercept and escort the U-Wing and mentions General Merrick, the leader of the Blue Squadron that gives the rebels at Scarif air support, is away on a mission currently. Cassian, K2SO, and Melshi make their approach at Yavin, and they treat them like an enemy as they land, as the entire garrison aims at them when Cassian walks out. They give Kleya some medical attention as Cassian is brought to the council room to discuss what had happened. He tells them about the Death Star and Luthen's death. The same council member from Rogue One is here who I don't like, Tanara Pamlo, who is the senator of Terrace. She questions everything he says, and I like the attitude he gives her.
Are you serious?
She bashes Luthen as well, and Cassian defends him in front of all these high council members, and I just think that is so based.
I don't know if what he was told is true or not, but it's insulting to hear him run down by people who have given a fraction of his sacrifice to this rebellion.
Mon Mothma is relatively silent for most of this meeting, but finally says something in support of Cassian's information, questioning if they are just going to do nothing. Mon may not like Luthen as a person, just like everyone else here, but she knows that he is a credible person and that any intelligence coming from him is likely to be true. I mean, she literally was saved by his intelligence when he told her Bale's extraction team was corrupted, so I don't think it gets more trustworthy than that. Bale confines Cassian to his quarters, but Mon gives him permission to visit the infirmary to see Kleya. Draven walks with him there and tells him about his contact Tivik, who has an urgent message for him on Kafrene. For those of you who have watched Rogue One, this is that asteroid city at the beginning of the movie where Cassian meets Tivik and Tivik gives him the information and Cassian kills him afterwards because he would just be a loose end. Draven is a big rules guy and definitely doesn't like Luthen, but he still seems to trust Cassian and his judgment, which is why he tells him this and has let him off the hook here and there. Mon and Vel appear to be living in the same house as Mon informs Vel that Luthen is dead and Kleya is on Yavin. She wants her to spy on Cassian to make sure the information is genuine. Cassian breaks this news to Wilman as well, and Vel meets with Cassian and confirms that Luthen's information is indeed real. They raise a toast to all the Aldhani rebels, the Gormans, and Marva, and this is a nice moment, as they are both OGs who helped kickstart the entire rebel movement. Nimik's manifesto replays, the same portion that plays in Season 1's finale, and honestly, I think his manifesto is the best speech in Star Wars, as Nimik's words really hit hard, especially after knowing his story. The ISB seized his manifesto from where I'm guessing it was left in the apartment, and we see Partagaz listening to it. He is aware that the rebellion is spreading like wildfire, and I think it's so cool that his manifesto made its way to Partagaz's door, and even the Imperials get to hear it. Lagret informs him that the stormtroopers are waiting for his arrest, and he unalives himself behind the closed doors, and I was shocked to see Partagaz go like this, honestly, but it was bound to happen as a security leak of the Death Star is a big deal, and people have to pay for it. Bale visits Cassian and encourages his mission to Kafrene, seeming to have changed his mind about Cassian's information. Cassian asks him why he has switched up all of a sudden, and he tells him he wants to go down swinging against the Empire. This definitely took some convincing though, as both Mon Mothma and Draven had a conversation with him about this beforehand, and basically put in a really good word for Cassian. This final sequence of Cassian walking towards the U-Wing as the rebels who fight alongside him on Scarif are running right past him is so cool, man. We see Perrin in his car in Coruscant as he is now with Davos Golden's wife, and it seems like he has already moved on from Mon. The biggest shocker to me is Dedra being sent to Narkina 5 and sitting in the same type of cell that Cassian was in. This is so ironic because she literally helped manage the creation of the Death Star, and now she is the victim of her own success as she now is a slave to the Imperial war machine that she once protected so passionately. We see Saw Gerrera looking out at Jedha City from his base, viewing the Star Destroyer hovering over it. We see Krennic viewing the construction of the Death Star, and lastly, we are given the clarity that B2 is enjoying life on Mina Rao, and most tragically, Bix is there, holding her and Cassian's child, staring off into the sky. This is actually so sad because Cassian never knows he had a child and never gets to see Bix again. This makes his death on Scarif and the sacrifice he makes for the rebellion hit just that much harder. And yeah, that's it for Andor Season 2. I can't believe we're already done with this entire show. This has been such an incredible experience watching this show every week and making videos for you guys. And I am still in awe about how perfect Andor as a whole has been and how much of a blessing it is that Star Wars has reached a new height in storytelling. It kind of sucks knowing that Tony Gilroy is done with Star Wars now and that we probably will never see Star Wars this good again, but hey, you never know. Maybe one of these days we'll get another writer who knows how to cook just like this and we'll get more peak fiction. I guess I'm gonna have to get used to turning my brain off for the upcoming Dave Filoni projects, but I don't want to be too down on things that haven't even released yet, so I'll just leave it on a positive note and let's just hope for the best for the upcoming Star Wars projects. I think the way this finale ties right into the start of Rogue One is just beautiful, and I'm very excited to see the theatrical cut they plan on releasing in theaters later next year, which will be combining the Andor show with Rogue One. So yeah, that's all for this video, and all I ask is that you make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, as most people who watch my videos are not subscribed. Also, please make sure to blow up that like button like the Death Star blows up Alderaan, and comment your thoughts on the season down below. Since Kleya, Wilman, and Vel all survived the show, what do you think happens to them all? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. This is Narfboy, saying bye. Bye!